Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 74, where tonight we'll analyse the Man City game and the players, talk about the Molineux atmosphere, take your questions and look ahead to Sunday's game against Aston Villa. A positive show at last. What a performance, what a team, and what a lot of apologies our pundits are going to give out tonight. First of all, though, let's talk about the game. Tyler, what a performance. Your take on Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, the European champions 1.
I mean, what's the point of doing this anymore, if we're brutally honest? Pointless, and we might as well pack it in now because we've all been made to look a bit silly, haven't we? I just did not see that coming, and it wasn't a performance where I thought we were lucky or they battered us and we've got away with one. I thought we were just excellent. That's not even enough positive. I thought we were, absolutely superb, and every player was exactly what we want them to be, week in, week out. And we know they can't perform to those levels, and all games are different. But the difference from Luton and Ipswich, that was just, chalk and cheese, wasn't it? And fair play to O'Neill. I think he used his brain this week, didn't he, and worked in training all week. And the setup and the formation and the approach was absolutely spot on. And little tweaks about Toti Gomez. Obviously, people know my thoughts on him, but he was outstanding in that position where he was left centre-back, but he was almost a little bit tucked inside Ait-Nouri just to look after Foden. I've never seen Phil Foden that quiet in a Man City shirt. Craig Dawson, for me, was imperious. Absolutely outstanding. And I think Knocker just sort of mentioned just before we came on there, you don't beat Man City unless everyone's a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And I genuinely think Wolves were that good. Hwang, by far his best game in a Wolves shirt. He was energetic, he was lively, his touch was sharp, the movement. The front three were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I don't want to steal Alan Shearer's thunder, but what he said on Match of the Day was spot on. The way the front three just broke at pace and drove at them, it was outstanding, and it just relieved a bit of pressure. The two in midfield, the unsung heroes. Again, I always say they can't deliver, when we need them in a game where it's a bit tight. But games like Saturday, they're just made for it, aren't they, those two? And they were outstanding. And I can't remember our last positive show, to be honest, so it's going to be a difficult one. But I haven't got enough positive things to say about it. It was tremendous.
What a start to the show there from our pundit, Chris Tyler. Nocky, that's some job following on from that. It's a fantastic afternoon, Nocky, but where did that come from? We've talked on the show. I think I said 3-0. One of you said 5. One of you said 6. I don't know anybody that thought Wolves were going to win. It's the gallows humour. We laughed about it. We had a good show last week and some fun. But sometimes when you get a result like this, the ones you don't expect, these are the ones that feel the best. I mean, we went home together after the game, back in the car with your dad and my mum, and they're absolutely buzzing. So, Nocky, what happened? Where did that come from?
There's no point asking me. I clearly know absolutely nothing about football, mate. So I don't even know why you're asking me. No, I was maybe a tad harsh on O'Neill last week. I was a little bit emotional. I apologise, but at the same time, a lot of what I says was pretty accurate. We had been poor half our games. We had capitulated, and we had just lost to Ipswich Reserves after being 2 goals up. But I'll give credit and criticism in equal measure, and I thought that he was absolutely perfect against Man City. I thought the setup was spot on. The system was perfect. He recognised things that weren't working. Cunha played him slightly deeper, and he was able to impact the game. Hwang, who I think most Wolves fans have dug out at some point, was absolutely outstanding. He ran them ragged. It worked, and I think some of the things that really worked in our favour was Man City lost Rodri, so they had to move Kovacic across into a position where he's not particularly comfortable, and we were able to really exploit that. There's a lot of players that have been spoken about in terms of the way they've performed, but I think Mario Lemina, João Gomez in midfield were able to dominate the game and really control it. Toti Gomez was, I've heard him described before as a wardrobe falling down the stairs. Well, he absolutely wasn't that. He was sensational. And Jose Sarr was commanding. He was dominant. I thought Ait-Nouri, the only time he actually got anything wrong was when he was trying to dribble out the edge of his own box, and that actually led to our winner. So everything just worked for us. I think if you're going to beat a team like Man City, they've got to have a bit of an off day, and that's not casting any dispersions over our performance, because we know how good they are, we know how good the squad is, and they've got to have a little bit of an off day, and you've got to be absolutely at it. And we were brave. That we conceded the goal, and you're thinking, here comes a capitulation. It never happened. We managed to recharge and go again, and it was a different game to the Liverpool game. I think in that match, I never felt like we were going to get anything out of the game. I always felt we were going to lose it, even when we were a goal up. This felt different because we were more solid, we were more compact, we looked more organised. And I think going to 3 at the back, Kilman's instantly a better player when you're 3 at the back, because he's got more confidence, he's got players around him. Dawson was able to really just destroy Haaland, in all honesty. He just controlled him throughout the game, and Totti gave us some real physical strength and some stability at the back. So it just really worked for us. And, I've dropped a couple of clangers in my time, and I've said Pedro Neto was probably past his best, but he was phenomenal. I mean, he took Foden out. He just kept going and going and going, and he set up another goal. So humble pie for me. I've got absolutely no problem eating big portions of humble pie if it means Wolves are getting results. So it was an incredible day, and I was actually felt a little bit emotional when Hwang took that second in, because it was just it was a game that deserved to get something out of. If we'd have lost the game after that performance, I wouldn't have been too disappointed, and I wouldn't have come out and slaughtered the team this week, because of how much they put into it. And I don't expect them to win every week. I just expect them to have a go at teams, and they absolutely did that. So comments last week I was a little bit negative, but this week I couldn't be more proud of the lads and the manager as well, because he pulled my pants down and spanked my bottom with that performance, and I'm delighted that he did.
Long may it continue. Great start. You're listening and watching episode 74 of the Wolves Report with fence sitter Mark Knock and our director of football, Chris Tyler. A magnificent afternoon at Molineux on Saturday, something we really wasn't expecting. Just a point to mention there in a little bit of needle. The reason was Rodri suspended because our old friend Morgan Gibbs-White got in his face. He couldn't resist, and it got Rodri sent off. So thank you, Morgan. The add-ons are including favours as well as money. So yeah, thank you, Morgan Gibbs-White. The thing that stood out for me the most is I'm a purist bore, and we talk about how different ways we want to see the game played. I never put Man City on the telly and not be entertained and not admire them. I don't recall Man City being as suffocated in the final third, maybe in the box, as much as I saw that. Now, that may be biased, but did Jose Sarr really have that many gilt-edge saves to make? The way that team controlled the areas, the little measured presses in the corners to force them back, start again, get over, it was fantastic. It was a tactical masterclass from Gary O'Neill, and we've given him stick. We were worried. We've all criticised him on different levels on this show and on social media, but you have to say he's outdone one of the world's best managers at the moment with the world's best squad. Granted, they didn't have all their players, but it was a tactical masterclass, and he deserves credit. It was absolutely brilliant. We go toe-to-toe with them. It's going to be a humiliation. Be patient, stay strong, be aggressive, break quick, and that's what they did. There wasn't any tippy-tappy. It was direct and it was fast, and Man City didn't like it. And as Nocky said, and as you said there, I couldn't be prouder of them. To have that afternoon at Molineux, to see our team that was struggling and we were confused about the direction of the club, to beat the European champions is a huge lift going forward for the season. So I'm absolutely delighted. And I wanted to have a little chat then, because you two have smashed it starting off on the show. So I thought I can't be left out and not have a sing myself. Starting off with the first goal then, the shape was good. I think there was one early scare. There was a little ball probably that went over the head of Semedo, and El Rato crossed it across the face of goal. Dawson put a wonderful little touch to clip it away. But other than that, Man City didn't really do anything against Wolves in the first half. But Tyler, talk me through Pedro Neto's goal. He picks it up in his own half. And I know we've all been saying for a while, come on, Pedro, be more direct. That kid has got the belief back. He's fit, he's strong, and now he's got his belief. I mean, an assist is as good as a goal, and it was fantastic. Tyler.
Will you stop asking questions and then answering it yourself? It was quick and direct, and it was good to set up a goal, yeah. I'm with Knocker. I sort of queried whether he'd get back to those levels of sort of pre-injury. You know, the Southampton goal, the Chelsea goal at Molineux was brilliant. He's there, and it is another level above again, isn't he? I mean, the only problem is how long do we keep him? Because if he keeps playing like this, every club in the world is going to be looking, because that's just serious pace and serious.
Phil Foden and Nathan Ake are not slow footballers.
Foden didn't even bother, did he? And then Ake had probably 2 or 3 yards on him, and bang, they were gone. And it's the final delivery though as well, isn't it? We've always said his stats haven't been good enough, but this season he's scoring the goal at Luton, he's putting the balls in that we're scoring from, so his stats are improving as well. If he keeps going like he is, then crikey Riley, he's going to be a hell of a player. And just complemented well. We just have the three of them can all do it, can't they? Not to the same levels, but Kuna and Hwang were doing exactly the same thing. They were picking up, they were turning, and they were just driving at City. That was a clear tactic, wasn't it? And I've never seen Kyle Walker, Ruben Dias, Nathan Ake that rattled ever in any game of football. So, you know, hats off to O'Neill, because it's quite a simple tactic, isn't it? But it works so effectively.
Play to your strengths.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Pedro Neto was fantastic, but we'll go through the players again, but I want to go through the moments in the game. Again, going back to the shape, Man City understandably have a lot of ball, but it's not what you've got, it's what you do with it, and they did very little. But just going on to the referee briefly, because to show I'm not just talking about it when we lose games. I really struggled with the consistency of the referee in that game. Nathan Ake, he's took down Max Kilman. He's then swung an arm, and I think he's took Pedro Neto out. That's 2 yellow cards. I would like to say, though, it's probably a second yellow from Hwang as well. I would say it's probably a second yellow. He probably gets booked if he doesn't do that. But to miss multiple challenges like that in the game, I thought many 50-50 free kicks went Man City's way. Now, I'm there, I'm passionate, I'm watching my team. I might have my gold tinted glasses on, but it didn't feel like a balanced officiating performance. Either way, it didn't stop Wolves. One of the controversial decisions was, I think there was a foul in the build up to the free kick when Alvarez scored. Whether we're going to question the keeper or that, I don't know. But it's a fantastic equaliser. Nocky, I think we talked about, are we having a look at Jose Sarr there, or is the free kick that good we can't really point at him?
From my position at first, I thought, yeah, he probably should have saved that. But then when you see the replay, it's hell of a free kick. I mean, it's right in the top corner, and you kind of, I mean, Tyler was a goalkeeper. You set your wall up, and you're kind of relying on your wall to deal with that. But it's whip, it's pace. I don't know. I think at the time I thought maybe he could have done better, but looking back now, I think it would have been a bit harsh. I think it was just a hell of a free kick. Sometimes you just got to hold your hands up.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a fantastic goal. But this is a guy that's played like up front and just won the World Cup with Messi, and he's playing for Man City. You're expecting those standards. As we've seen in quite a few games this season, we've seen Wolves take the lead or be level and then sort of capitulate, and it's happened a few times. But I think not long afterwards, there was a player down, and Gary O'Neill pulled the team together. And I think he mentioned this, and he said, "Lads, we're going against Man City now. Are we going to stop now? Or are we going to go again?" And boy, did they go again. Tyler, that second goal, Max Kilman, Nelson Semedo puts the ball across. Great ball, because it's the keeper hasn't come. It's between the defender and the keeper. It's bounce deflection. Cunha's touch is simple, but it's absolutely football brain genius. Most players then are turning and slap shotting. He's laid him off. Hwang's banged it in. Yeah, talk me through the feelings of that goal.
It was I don't want to go back to it to harp on about it, but it was like a Nuno goal, wasn't it? It was quick, it was sharp. Kilman over the top, bang the wing back. I'm sure we'll come on to the formation, but we just seem so suited to it, don't we? Like Knocker said, Kilman just looks a different player in the back three. He had a bit of time and space, and he can pick out those passes. We've all criticised Semedo's output, haven't we? You know, attacking wise, but it was a decent ball in. You need a bit of the rub of the green, don't you? We got the deflection, worked in our favour. But the touch, like you say, was genuinely world class. It took, I think, Akanji and Edison straight out of the game. They'd gone the other way. I think they're still heading to the shops now. And then, if you want it to fall to anyone at the moment, it's Hwang, isn't it? And he did his best to miss it, didn't he? Because Walker got his bonds to it. But yeah, it was. I think it was like what Nocky said at the start. It was the fact that when they equalised, we probably all thought, "Oh, here we go again." But no, we kicked on and we went again. And we really took the game to them. And it was a brilliant goal. It really was a well-worked goal. And one you'd have think they've, again, been working on all week in training, freeing up Kilman, freeing up Semedo, and getting the runners in the box. 3 or 4 runners weren't there as well. That's a good thing to see. And yeah, it was limbs, wasn't it? Because they didn't really threaten after that, did they? I don't think. They didn't really look like scoring. There wasn't really a heart in the mouth moment. And you're right, Sarr hasn't really had anything to do, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Jose Sarr, we'll go on to the players shortly, but the way he commanded his box with his catching, his distribution, he was more patient, because I know a few times recently he'd given the ball away, trying to counter quickly. But just talking about the formation, I think he'd also benefited Ait-Nouri, Tyler, that Ait-Nouri's strength is getting forward and he's very comfortable on the ball. I mean, he's tried to take Phil Foden on 3 times in that game. He's nearly given it away twice and done it once, but it didn't stop him because he's got the confidence. But it's a formation, as we've seen and we've become accustomed to under Nuno, that those wide players there are going to get a lot of ball, and those guys are comfortable footballers that probably are better going forward, even though their numbers probably don't reflect what they should be getting when they get in those areas. So I thought it was a horses for courses formation, but the more I think about it, if that's Wolves going forward, and I've got a lot of questions about this, I'd be happy to see it. Well, I don't care what formation they play if they win. I know we harped on a long time about 4-4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, but I think we've got a manager now that will probably switch through both.
Sorry to put him on, but it can be a very attacking formation. If you're playing,
if it's 3-4-3, when you're loaded up,
exactly,
then massive.
You can leave the 2 in there doing the dirty work. You get your fullbacks on, plus you've got your 3 forwards. It can be very attacking, and I think someone put in the comments there, we look like we're going to score goals again, and that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah. One thing I think that, I don't know, I think you've talked about this as well. Both of you have talked about Lamina and Gomez probably not being as technical as their predecessors, but because of their athleticism and what they're able to do, they can cover for Ait-Nouri, they can cover for Semedo, so we can have our wing backs pushing up even more and trust that you've got a mobile, strong defensive midfielder that will not let anyone go past them, that is prepared to take a yellow card, that can do the dirty yards and allow that. And the way Semedo was up that pitch again, it was like he was reborn. I know Semedo seems to have a stinker or a brilliant game, and this was certainly on the brilliant game. And I'm a big fan of Nelson Semedo. When he's on it, he doesn't really get skinned. I mean, what's that? What did that guy cost? 64 million, and he's hardly give him a kick in the game. Absolutely fantastic. Let's go through the team and go through them individually and talk about their performances. Nocky, Jose Sarr,
really strong and dominant performance. And there was a couple of times where Neto was breaking and he didn't fire the ball over to him. This time he kept hold of it, and we got back into our shape and we got into the system, and he was sensible. I think he did everything right. He was dominant with the crosses. His distribution was good. There was no kind of rash moments. It was just a very organised performance up against, probably the best strike force in world football, arguably. So, yeah, really pleased with him. He's probably one of his better games for Wolves, even though he didn't have a great deal to do. But what he did do, he did really well.
What I did like, and I know it doesn't always work like this, and I know we were caught out at Luton, and I think we were caught out for another, maybe against Liverpool as well, when he tried to distribute. He took his time. He held it. He took a breath. I know he feels like he's quite an erratic guy sometimes, but he held the ball. He looked up. He took a breath. He sometimes barked out some instructions. People calmed. And I think a lot of the team did that. It was in positions when we had like a 50% chance to counter, but when the pass wasn't on, they'd start again. As particularly when we had the lead, Wolves were patient, and the patience starts from the back, and it started from him. So, yeah, I think there was one absolute rasper from Kyle Walker that was quite close to him, but his handling, particularly in the second half of the crosses, he came out, he got absolutely everything. He didn't flap, he looked confident, and he looked like a keeper that had signed a new contract that was looking to go and kick on again. So, yeah, delighted with Jose Sarr. Tyler, moving on to Max Kilman.
Just outstanding, I thought. Faultless almost. Was it a faultless performance? I can't really remember him putting a foot wrong. I love him when he's in that back three and he just picks it up and he goes on a little walkabouts and sort of takes people on, and obviously should have led to a booking for Ake in the first half, led to the second goal. he's just so much more comfortable in that 3, isn't he? It's ridiculous, really. And I was one of the big ones calling for the back 4 to try and get the extra attacking option, but that's at a time when we were so toothless up front and we weren't creating chances. If we can find the balance in this 3-4-3, I just think it suits us so well. He can play with both feet, big, strong, commanding, winning headers. 9 out of 10 for me all day long.
I don't know, people would say Kilman, people often talk about Kilman and Dawson not having a lot of pace. I don't think Max Kilman is that slow. I think he's that big. Once he gets up and running, I don't think he's a slow footballer. What is Max 6'5"? He's a big lad. He's never going to look like he's flying across the ground because it's going to take a little while to get the gears going, but I think he's mobile.
He is a big lad, and he doesn't really ever look like he's towing a caravan, does he? But I think he's just got that mobility and good, just a good player, isn't he?
Nocky, moving on to Craig Dawson. Wow. Craig Dawson facing arguably the best number 9 in world football. What a performance.
I think Tyler said about, can you be faultless in the game? I think you keep them out. You've got to be pretty close to faultless. And his performance for me was absolutely faultless. I mean, there was some really big moments in there. There was the one off the line. There was the touch when Núñez puts one across goal. He just seemed to follow Haaland everywhere and bully him. Yeah. And when we're in that back 3, it just relieves so much of the pressure. And as we said, it gives Kilman room to move forward because Kilman can move with pace. And we talk about defenders, do they got any pace? How many centre-halves have actually got that much pace? It's about your positional sense, about your organisation and about the structure of your defence. And I thought he was absolutely sensational. Some of the interceptions, just the way he was always there, he was always in position. It was a faultless display. It's one of the best centre-half displays I've seen. And, Haaland last year, he got a hat-trick at the Etihad against us. He scored the opener. He got the second goal at Molineux. He never had a sniff. He looked like a bang average footballer, and that was because of the way that the back line and in particular Dawson controlled him. So, absolutely brilliant. He was faultless.
For someone that doesn't go around clattering people, Dawson's very aggressive in what he does. Like he doesn't leave a foot in. He's not really a dirty footballer, but he's tough. And when he's up to a battle, you don't really see him lose them. You've seen Erling Haaland roll centre-back after centre-back, bully them again and again. And you could see he was getting frustrated. To Craig Dawson to put that kind of performance up against arguably, Golden Boot winner last year, best part of 50 goals, was it? An incredible footballer. Just an absolute goal machine. To completely nullify him to 0 opportunities, it's almost immaculate from those two. I know they had the majority, but Max Kilman and Craig Dawson on Haaland, and I watch Haaland, and we've talked about it's just such a physical specimen that he can just, even if it's not a great first touch, his pace or his strength will just goes through people and thunders it home. To deny him anything at all was absolutely outstanding, and it's as good a centre-back performance I've seen at Molineux since I can ever remember. And Dawson and Max Kilman, fantastic. Now, let's go on to the wardrobe falling down the stairs, Tyler.
I need the toilet, lads. I'll be back in 5.
So, talk me through Toti Gomez marking Phil Foden out the game, a man who also hardly had a kick at Molineux on Saturday afternoon.
And I think this is why I'll just pack it in, because it's ridiculous, isn't it? I've got no words. I thought he was definitely the unsung hero of that performance. He just went about his business nice and quietly, unflustered. I've never seen Phil Foden, similar to you, Ryan, if they're on telly, I'm watching Man City, I've never seen him that quiet, that ineffective, almost that disinterested. He almost got to the point where he just knew he wasn't getting a kick, didn't he? And he almost didn't give up, obviously, because he's a class act, but he had nothing, did he? And I've criticised him massively, but if you do remember, I did say he does add a bit of pace and a bit of athleticism. And a
clutching there, dude.
I don't remember that.
I'm clutching. But he does, jokes aside, he does. The three of them together
complement each other.
All offer you something different. You've got Kilman's touch, you've got Dawson's leadership, you've got Toti's pace and strength. And for me, it's just the way forward, isn't it? We've got Villa at home. They're a real threat going forward. So for me, he's made that shirt his own. He's totally deserved it. Bellegarde being a bit of a silly boy has cost him his place, and it's Toti's shirt to lose now, isn't it? I thought he was absolutely outstanding. The way he just sort of played a little bit 5-10 yards in front of the other two, looked after Foden, outstanding.
Again, just going on to that back three, and I know I've bigged up Gary O'Neill's tactics and he's the way he's prepared the team for the game, but the way those three all had different jobs, they're all playing centre back, but the way they managed the game differently. Max Kilman brought the ball forward, won a free kick, great in distribution. Craig Dawson bullied Haaland, and if Haaland found a yard, Max Kilman was there to back him up for a second swipe. And Toti Gomez playing slightly left, sometimes left back, sometimes left centre back, dominating Phil Foden. Wolves conceded an absolutely fantastic goal from a free kick, but that's as good a defensive trio, going back to the Nuno knees, as I've seen in terms of performance. It was absolutely outstanding. If it's not for a world-class finish on a free kick, Wolves come away with a clean sheet, and you couldn't deny them that was absolutely brilliant. Now, people would look at the stats in the game and say Wolves were peppered, but territorially, Wolves didn't get hurt in the final third, and most of their shots were pot shots. So those three, I think we're talking a 10 out of 10 is hard to give, but how do you not give Craig Dawson a 10 out of 10 for that performance?
Dawson's 10 out of 10 and the other two are 9.75.
They've got to be, haven't they? It's simply phenomenal. And Toti's probably the most limited in terms of football ability, and he had a bit of a stinker at Ipswich. There's no doubt about that. But Toti's a better defender than he's a footballer. If you give him a job to stop somebody, he's very, very good at stopping them. So to put that again, that performance against Phil Foden, who is just an absolute joyful footballer to watch, huge credit to Toti and the back three. So absolutely fantastic. Nocky, moving on to another outstanding performance in the form of Nelson Semedo.
Brilliant performance again. You kind of run out of superlatives, and I just want to quickly touch on something you said there about the statistics. I think that game was kind of proof that statistics aren't always relevant in a football match, because the way that we played, we wanted them to have possession of the ball. We wanted to be able to break on them. We wanted to be able to let them put that pressure on us so that we could react to it. And yeah, if you saw the stats, you'd think the Wolves were butchered, but the stats do not reflect that football match, because I thought Wolves deserved the win. I don't think anyone who watched the game would probably argue with that. But just coming back to Semedo, I thought he was really good. And what I liked as well, there was some needle in his game. There was just a little bit of nastiness. And we spoke last week during one of my city rants that we were too nice and we weren't nasty enough. And the full-time whistle, I don't know if anyone clocked it, but his shoulder bars Jack Grealish.
Good lad.
That started a little bit of a ruckus. And he was just, he had a little bit of bite about him this week. And, up against players where in the past, I think we've been guilty of autograph hunting during games. And there was none of that. There was a bit of spice and a bit of nastiness about him, and ambition as well, which was something I really liked from his performance. We're in a position where we won one against Man City. You kind of think we'll take that. That's a good result for us. But he's bursting forward and Kilman.
Your wing back's the highest player up in that attack, and that's incredible.
That, and he's made that run, and Kilman's found him, and he's had the presence of mind to put the ball across. Had a bit of a flick with that. It doesn't matter. He's still got himself in the position to cross it. So yeah, really solid performance. And I'm a big Nelson Semedo fan. I think he's a really good player. I think he's occasionally been a little bit of a scapegoat unfairly. But consistency-wise, he's up there this season with anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a couple of times, but I want to say it more often. He genuinely looked like a £30 million right back that you bought from Barcelona, and a little bit more the weekend. He was fantastic. Just to jump onto one of your stats then, in terms of one stat that is important other than the score, is in terms of clear-cut chances. Man City clear-cut chances in the game, 0. Wolves clear-cut chances, 1. So when it comes down to stats, if you're restricting a team like that to 0 and you're creating a clear-cut one yourself, as in when Cunha squared to Hwang Hee-chan, absolutely fantastic.
Stats do have a place in the game, and I know we have a bit of back and forth about XG and all that, but I know it does have a place in the game. But I just think you have to take the game as it is. You have to take it as an individual game
in its purest form.
Well, Chelsea have won every game this season on XG, and they're sat just above us in the league. So a good XG and a good statistical performance doesn't mean you play well on the day, and it doesn't mean your opposition has played poorly and got away with one. That was no smash and grab by any stretch of the imagination. That was a well-drilled, organised performance with passing with purpose and a real solid game plan behind it. And I think, you're always going to have the Man City didn't play well. No, I'm not having that. I think
Man City were not allowed to play well.
Exactly that.
Yeah, Man City weren't allowed to play well. And I mean, I said last week, I talked about it, tuck in, be aggressive, and when you break quickly with many more passes. And that's what we did. Obviously, I'm no tactician myself, but I mean, if you hit teams quick with pace and make the most of Cunha, Hwang, and Neto for their best attributes, you'll hurt most teams because they've all got enough pace to beat anybody. Fantastic. Moving on to Ryan Aït-Nouri, Tyler.
Yeah, it was all right, wasn't it? We've talked about it before. He's by far the best left back at the club. He's now got a manager that seems to believe that as well, and we're seeing the fruits of it. How he's never got in front of Totti and Bueno as the number one left back before, I'm not sure. Whether it's attitude, whether it's commitment, who knows? There've been rumours about him. But he's come to be the best in that position that we've got. Showed what a quality player he is, both ends of the pitch. He can defend, he can attack, he's tidy. Slight issue about his crampness, is that a word that he does keep getting? That'll be a bit.
I mean, what I would say to that though, Tyler, is when we're defending, he's protecting Totti. When we're attacking, he's supporting Hwang. The guy puts a monster shift in. So whether he has to manage himself in the game and restrict the runs, but he does.
I don't know. As a professional footballer, you're lasting more than an hour. I don't care what position you're playing in.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
But it happens quite a lot, doesn't it? He might have an issue, he may well do, who knows, and it's something they've probably got to manage. But, it's similar to Totti. It's his shirt to lose now, isn't it? He's got it.
Yeah.
I like him both ends of the pitch. I always have. I've always been a fan of his. So hopefully, the noise disappears on him and he can kick on.
Yeah, the more Wolves play wing back, the more I want to see Ryan Aït-Nouri, because the way he glides with the football, he's as talented as anybody in that squad, and there's some talent in that squad. I do think he's got one of the amazing run goals in him, like Max Kilman did in Benidorm last pre-season. The way he just, when he gets going and he's just slaloming past people and you can't get it, I do think he's got one of those goals in him, and hopefully it's soon. But fantastic afternoon for Ryan Aït-Nouri, delighted. Nocky, moving on to Mario Lemina.
You know my feelings on Mario.
I'm
absolutely in love with the man.
Is the loving? Not after 9 o'clock yet, boys, is it?
But I think we've had conversations about he's limited, and I think he is limited because he doesn't need to do any more than he does. What he does is absolutely superb, and the real difference in midfield is that they lost their holding midfielder and we still had ours, and he dictated the game. And I thought the way that he dominated the game, the way that he squeezed them, he didn't give them space. He's intelligent play as well. He wasn't looking to do anything special. He was winning the ball and distributing it. He's just always there. He's just always available. And I think players like him will never get the credit they deserve because of the position they play. He's not going to get you 10 goals a season. He's not going to do step overs and drag backs, but he's going to win you the football. He's going to get you at the pitch and he's going to distribute it and he's going to reset and get himself back into position. And I thought he was excellent. And I think when you're playing a team like that, regardless of what injuries they've got, they've got top internationals and world-class players all over the pitch, and he didn't look out of place, and that's probably the biggest compliment I could give him. He was really, really good, and I really like the guy, and I love the picture of him sticking his tongue out at Edison as well. That was phenomenal.
He's infectious, isn't he? Mario wears that shirt that he plays with the effort that if any of us could run for 5 minutes, that would play with. He's in for every tackle as hard as he can. He means everything. Every ball, every challenge means a lot to him. And I think he was someone that epitomised Wolves' performance, from the determination, the desire, the fight. And he gets it. He gets us. And he's clearly happy at Wolves. And I'm a huge fan. But with the ball, maybe more limited than others. But no one's as good as him and João Gomez at winning the ball back. I've never seen a pair at Wolves that good at recovering the ball since I've ever been watching Wolves. Maybe he's not as technically gifted as the predecessors, but nobody wins the ball back as good as those two. I love Mario Lemina. I think it was a silly booking to kick the ball away. That was my only frustration, because he's topping up with the bookings, and I am a big fan of the kicking, because the amount of times it's infuriated you and fans and everybody else. It is infuriating. So as soon as the players get used to that rule and don't kick the ball away, it'll be better for the game. So foolish for him. That was the only sort of knockdown, but otherwise I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Tyler, moving on to the second romantic midfield. We have João Gomez. What a find for £15 million.
I can sort of echo what Nocky said, Carl. He's almost like his younger brother, isn't he, that looks up to Mario. I mean,
I like that.
I agree with you. I've never seen anyone get the ball back as well as he does. He gets his body in some weird positions, but he wins the ball back. And I think as he develops, and I'm hoping as he goes on, he's probably got a little bit more with the ball as well than Lamina has. That's, not disregarding Lamina in any stretch, because like Knocker said, he does his job and he does it well. I think Gomez is probably the one that we can look to trust a little bit more with the ball, and we can maybe play through him a bit, because I think he's better than he's letting on with that side of it. But like I said at the start, in a game like that, those two were just made for it. You can just imagine them loving it before kick-off, because it's just exactly what they need. The pretty boys are in town to come and play around us, and we're not having any of it, and that's exactly what it was. But I'll say it again, my only concern is when we've got to be that team on the front foot and we've got to break teams down, that's the only time I'd have a concern with them. But those games are made for them.
Could you get away with it, though, for playing 3-4-3, like you said, Tyler? Because then if they're protecting the wing-backs, you've then technically got two wingers each side and your main man, so you've got 5 going forward.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, and I don't see why not. Neves and Moutinho were artists, weren't they? But they were never sort of bombing on and scoring loads of goals, were they? And I'm not saying these two will, but if it frees up your centre-backs a bit as well, I'd like to think so, and it's certainly the way I'm going moving forward. Whoever the opponents are, I'm just playing this formation.
One thing I want to say about them too as well is, and it definitely got the fans up who were already up for the game anyway, and we will talk about the atmosphere shortly, but Mario Lemina and Joe Gomez, at any opportunity when they could have a little nibble at their returning old friend that was too good for Wolves, he did not get a sniff. Any opportunity to run with the ball, bang, again, shoulder, little nibble, leaving a little foot in. He was ratting at them two were ratting at him again and again and again, and he didn't get a kick. Now, as much as we cuss him and we're annoyed at the way he portrayed himself, he's a very good footballer, and I'm sure he'll go on to win things at Man City. However, he came back, mentally he wasn't strong enough. Our fans got on him. Our centre midfielders didn't let him breathe. He got subbed up at half-time, and then they were singing "What a Waste of Money" for the rest of the game. It was absolutely glorious. And I think Mario Lemina and Joe Gomez have got to take a lot of credit for that, because they've had a point to prove. They've pocketed a £50 million footballer, absolutely no problem at all. Fantastic. Moving on to the forward line, whose turn is it? Nocky, tell me about Pedro Neto's performance.
Just sensational, wasn't it? I mean, he's a few weeks ago we were kind of discussing him that he was too scared to take anyone on. He wouldn't commit. At
that point, it was true, Nocky.
And it was true, yeah. I mean, he was cutting back inside and giving it back into midfield because he didn't want to take him on. I don't know what's clicked. I don't know whether Gary O'Neill's got in his head. I don't know whether he's just feeling naturally more confident now and he just feels safe, he feels fit, he feels ready to go. But whatever it is, he's absolutely working because he just runs at people now. And the way he steamed away from Phil Foden, who's no slouch, and just kept going. And Nathan Ake is a relatively quick defender, and he just left him for dead. And he just seems to have something about him at the moment. He looks like a world-class footballer. He's just got that ability to find space and get himself into positions, and his distribution of the ball's really good. He doesn't seem to give it away. And he's almost become a player that we look to now to stabilise us when we're struggling a little bit. He's your outball, and just a phenomenal performance. I think keeping him fit is going to be a challenge because we know that he's a player who does seem to pick up a few injuries, and keeping him fit and maybe potentially rejecting a few big bids at Christmas could be a bit of a risk as well. But if you keep him fit and you keep him for the season, you can see him being involved in 20 plus goals this season, one way or another, because he just seems to be everything we do well seems to come through Pedro at the minute. Yeah,
what I liked about Pedro as well is we can all honestly say that at the start of the season, he looked like he had something, but he didn't believe in himself taking anybody on. And we're like, well, if you're going to play wide, you need to commit that. It's your responsibility to create opportunities for yourself or somebody else. And he put on a nice few balls in, but he wasn't really beating anybody. But something has clicked. But not only that, the way he's so direct towards goal, there's not really any step overs. It's pace, power, direct. Nathan Ake doesn't really get skinned that often. I don't watch a lot of Man City and think he's getting a torrid time by anybody. Nathan Ake is not slow, and he absolutely gave him a right showing up, and it was fantastic to watch. In terms of what you're saying, Nocky, about coming in for a bid, well, people can laugh and joke about it, but if you're doing that to Man City and you're like your early 20s, you're a £100 million footballer, because look at the ridiculous market. if you put on a performance like that and you score goals like you did at Luton, and the big boys come knocking, then, well, I want a huge amount of money. Pedro, if he keeps this up, will eventually go. That's the club they are, and that's the model it is. So let's enjoy him now. Let's enjoy that talent and hope he does, because if someone does come knocking for silly money, it means Wolves have probably had a really good season. So, yeah, fantastic from Pedro Neto. Gritty, angry, love his celebrations. He's a bit of us, Pedro, at the moment. Fantastic. Tyler, moving on to Matheus Cunha. Slightly deeper role for him, playing sort of like a false 9/10, sat in front of João Gomez and Mario Lemina.
Is that the role we've been saying that he should be playing in?
That's what we've all been saying for a long time.
I mean, it's not hard, is it? If you play in the best position, you see what you get. He picks it up deep, he drives with it, he runs with it. The way he turns is beautiful. His first touch is normally impeccable. Head up a bit more. He seemed to be a bit more aware of who was around him and when, and releasing it at the right time. That just looks his position to me. And if the other two can get ahead of him, then it works, doesn't it? If he's at the top of that three, then it may not work as well. But outstanding, dropped him when he needed to, defended from the front, worked hard. I tweeted those front three were everything you'd want them to be on Saturday, and he was part of it. I think he'd have probably scored if Diaz didn't get the touch, and that would have been the icing on the cake, wouldn't it? But just a solid performance, and it's what we want to see week after week. We've seen glimpses of it, and now we want to see it all the time, don't we?
One of my favourite bits at the moment, I mean, it was a good performance because he worked hard, he pressed, he tried to beat people. I mean, I think he was very unfortunate not to get a few fouls at the end. If that's the other end, they're probably getting free kicks, and he threw himself around a bit. But his celebration when he set on Hwang, it was like Pedro at Luton. He didn't know what to do. There was arms going everywhere. He was so happy. And again, he was a bit of us. That moment, he was like fist pumping. It was fantastic. So delighted for Matheus Cunha. He's got a huge price tag to live up to, but he's putting performances on now that you're thinking, well, if Wolves don't play with a natural 9, and it is a false 9 with two wide men, that's definitely his position. But for me, if it's a 4-2-3-1, it's him that needs to be in the 10 and not the 9. Noki, moving on to one of the top scorers in the Premier League, Hwang Hee-chan.
He was brilliant, wasn't he? He was really good. I mean, we've said before that he stays in the team because he's been scoring goals and he's not doing much else. Today, he scored and he contributed because he was just so good going forward. He was an outball all the time. He always seems to find space. He just seems to always be in space, but he tracked back as well, and he was helping out defensively. Normally, he frightens the life out of you when he goes into our half because you don't know what he's going to do with the ball, but he just had a stability about him, and he just looked like a really, really good footballer. And not just the goal. He was, he got himself into space. He hit the first shot. It's blocked. He stayed in space, and Cunha's played him in with a great ball. And, you'd suggest he should probably score that goal, but he's still got to be there and he's still got to put it in the net, and he did that. But there was just, he got himself into position again and he turned to Akanji, and it was more by luck than judgment that Akanji got back and blocked the shot. It was just a really good performance from him, and he's had moments for us where you think he's probably the best finisher at the club, but he's not offering a lot else. And if he gets the other side of his game right, as he did against Man City, then you've got an absolutely phenomenal player on your hands, and it's come really out of nowhere.
I mean, the goal tally speaks for itself, and that's a stat you can't argue with. And when you put Hwang in front of goal at the moment, he scores. I know people may disagree on that, but at the moment, he does look like the best finisher. You give it to Hwang, he scores. But what I would say, I've been critical, we've all been critical. That's the most complete performance I've seen from Hwang Hee-chan in a Wolves shirt. He quite often is wasteful with the ball. He gets dispossessed the deeper he gets. He doesn't really seem to get it the further he goes back. But he didn't do that. He's playing against the best team in the world, and it was his best performance. He protected his fullback. He took his goal well. I'm delighted for him. And any time that I say something's proven wrong and it's detrimental to me but positive for Wolves, I welcome it every week because it's a fantastic surprise to see a brilliant performance from Hwang, and he deserves all the credit he got.
If you look at the goals he's scoring, I mean, it's not an accident he's getting into them positions. I mean, he was in acres of space against Ipswich because he made an intelligent run. He got himself into space against City because it was an intelligent run. He scored a header because he got himself close and then backed off toward. He's a clever footballer. He knows how to find those pockets of space, and it's just been the other side of his game that's kind of let him down. And I think we all thought he'd have a part to play this season, but probably not a gigantic part. He'd be in and out. He's one of the first names on the team sheet at the minute, and that's a reflection on the effort he's put in to get himself to this level now.
Just looking at some great messages from Danny P. Danny P says the players with 4 goals this season: and Mbeumo, Watkins, Isaac, Saka, and Hwang. That's great company. The only players with more goals than Hwang Hee-chan this season are Bowen, Son, and Haaland. So he's sitting in some fine company. Credit to him. Long may it continue. Thank you for the stats, Danny. Much appreciated. We've spent a lot of time on the players, and deservedly so, because it's not every week Wolverhampton Wanderers beat the European champions in their at Molineux. One thing that changed for me as well from the start, and whether it was the return of Matheus Nunes, I don't know what it was, but Molineux was absolutely rocking again, Tyler. It was spiteful. It was angry. I don't recall it being that good for so long, and it seemed to inspire the team. And we've quite often said we need the team to inspire the crowd, and the pitch and the stands were in tandem. The tackles were being cheered. Every mistake from Nunes, every tackle booing, it worked. Molineux was back.
Yeah, I think there is an element of that. I think the Nunes factor certainly played a part, but we've said it 100 times. I mean, Wolves are so much better as the underdog, aren't they? When we haven't got a chance, when we're not expected to win, there's that siege mentality, isn't there? You know, that's what we hate going to Molineux as favourites, don't we? Let's be honest, because we know it's normally going to backfire. So I think a bit of a mixture of, O'Neill had come under some criticism, not from me, but people like Nocky, obviously, and I think that also played a part as well. There was that. There was Nunes. There was the fact we'd been written off before the game. And it looked like they just had a bit of a point to prove, didn't it? I think O'Neill himself probably felt he had a point to prove. I belong at this level. I can work against people like Guardiola, and I belong here. And I think that's the sort of what I was left with, is that from him and some of the players, that belonging, O'Neill, Hwang, Totti, people would probably written off far too soon. And, they've proved their point, haven't they? The only thing is for me now, and I think, we do need to just be a little bit careful. We've waxed lyrical for 45 minutes. We still want to see a bit more, don't we, in the consistency. But if Molineux's like that, we'll win more games there than we lose, without a shadow of a doubt.
Because Molineux visibly got under the skin of Matheus Nunes. Now, whether he's not as mentally strong as his teammates, and that will develop when you're working with those players, but he couldn't take it. He was hassled off the pitch, and he got hooked at half time. And there's no bigger compliment to the stand and the 2 centre midfielders when the pantomime villain gets taken off because he was having a stinker and he was mentally outdone by the crowd and the centre midfield. Nocky, obviously you were there with your dad and we met afterwards. Amazing atmosphere, and that noise for that second goal was absolutely sensational.
Yeah, I mean, Molineux was horrible, and when it's horrible, it's absolutely beautiful, because it is it'd be such a difficult place to play. I mean, I was quite surprised actually, because I was expecting, I don't know, going to the ground, it almost felt like a bit of we resigned to getting beat in this one. I think everyone was kind of turning up with I'll turn up because I'm a Wolves supporter, but I'm not expecting anything out of the game. But I think the Nunes factor absolutely helped, and it gave you something to kind of hold on to, in a sense that if he doesn't play well, as it might seem small time, but if he doesn't play well, it's a small victory, isn't it? But it got everybody up, and when he got hooked at half time, there was noise blasting out again, and we scored the goal, and Nunes, what's the score, was raging out, and he just gave us something to continuously grab onto. And I thought the atmosphere was excellent. They were fully behind the team, but it's only going to continue if the team are giving you something to support, and they absolutely did that. They were sensational. We fed off that, they fed off us, and it's a partnership that needs to continue. But I'm kind of with Tyler, as much as we're waxing lyrical about the performance, it's one performance. We've got to keep the momentum going now. We have to get more positive results, because if you end up losing the next couple of games, then it's all for nothing, isn't it? So collectively, we need to make sure that this isn't just a one-off and just a lucky performance, because Nunes was playing. We've got to keep this going now.
Well, absolutely. I think a lot of those players wouldn't have seen Molineux like that. I don't think the manager would have seen Molineux like that. The players now know who we are and what we're capable of. And if you put on a performance like that, that's what we'll deliver. And that needs to work in tandem. Now, I don't think 3-4-3 will continue throughout the season. We'll talk about that when we go on to Villa in a minute. And there'll be games when we need to take the team forward and be braver because we can't tuck in against the lesser sides. That's probably not going to work. But the fans have had a reminder of what we're capable of in the stands. Gary O'Neill knows who we are, and some of those players know who we are. And from the performance, now we know who some of them are as well. So it's a big step forward for everybody. As usual, we had lots of questions. Thank you for the responses. I'll get through as many as I can. Probably not going to get through all of them, but I usually put it out on my Twitter at the start of the week. A bit of a question to bring us down to reality, but it's a sensible question. What does it say about Wolves' mentality that the worst games were at Everton and at Luton? Yes, it's a dampener after a brilliant result, but it's a very fair point from Richard. We got 4 points in those games, so that's not exactly poor, is it? But they were stinky performances, Nocky.
They're different kind of games, aren't they? I mean, you Man Cities and you Man Uniteds, where we've probably played our best football, they're coming at you and they're trying to beat you. Everton and Luton were both very regimented in the way they played. It was solid lines defensively, and there was not a lot of space to play behind. So there weren't great performances, but we took 4 points out of those games. And I think if you're going to play the kind of football we play and the way we set up with the players we've got in attack, we want to be breaking. We don't really want too much of the football. So I don't think it's a mentality issue. I think it's more, it's your opposition. You know, it's how your opposition play. If your opposition aren't really coming at you, and Luton, although they had chances against us, there was not too much clear cut. It was very sort of solid base football where we'll try and get it wide and we'll try and swing it in your box, and then we're going to get back into our shape as quick as we can. And Everton were very sure and Dyche are going to play a similar way. So it's difficult to break those teams down, whereas Man City and United and Liverpool are always going to come at you and give you a chance in behind, and that's where we managed to exploit it.
Great answer. Thank you for your question, as always, and contribution to the show, Richard. Now, this question's aimed at me. I've got one of the lads I know from the away days at Molineux, a chap called Moff, and we talked about Hwang Hee-chan before the game. He's put the question on thinking I won't ask it, and I will, because I'll eat my words if it's for the benefit of Wolves. Moff asks, what is your take on Hwang this season, leading the line this well, but still not being a great fit? Wow, I'm going to have to eat those words, aren't I, Moff? But here we are. Hwang Hee-chan, proved me wrong every single week. As Tyler said, and I agree with him, previously done most of his best work without the football, teamwork, supporting his fullback, pressing. That's what he did best. Quite often given away is against goals against Newcastle, against Villa. But if this is Hwang Hee-chan 2 and he's coming up to himself and he's the second highest top scorer, joined the second highest top scorer in the Premier League, I'll absolutely have a little bit of that, and I'll be happy to eat my words on that. Hwang put his best performance on Saturday, and no one is happier and equally as surprised as me. I didn't think he was capable of that, and long may it continue, and then I'll totally change my opinion. So fair dues, Moff. I'll hold my hands up. Well played, Hwang Hee-chan. This is a great question that sort of feeds into tactics, Tyler. If we keep the formation, does Bellegarde fit in? Tough one.
It's an easy one for me. No, he doesn't. If you're playing 3-4-3, that's your 11, isn't it, at the moment? Nice problem to have. It gives you an option off the bench, which we didn't necessarily have on Saturday. If you want
the substitute well, by the way, I thought Boubacar did okay.
Yeah, I mean, in those, he can sort of cover the midfield, but also those forward positions as well. I think it gives you a lot more. If Hwang's struggling or Neto, for whatever reason he's struggling, he's the one you'd bring on there. You ain't really bringing on Sarabia or obviously the new young lad's not even in the squad, is he? So
let's not forget as well, but Bellegarde, and I'm not going to drop in the centre midfielders, but Bellegarde's by trade, he's a centre midfielder as well, but he just played as an attacking midfielder for Wolves in his debut. He spent most of his time actually playing in centre midfield.
So do you drop one of the two if it's 3-4-3 and not Bournemouth at home? Well, you've just said it's a tough question, so what are you going on about?
I would swing the question as in, if we're playing Bournemouth at home, I'd go to 4-2-3-1, and I'd probably take a centre-back out and put... But say again?
We're terrible in the back four. We all know it deep down. We can't play a back four.
So would you permanently keep in the 3-4-3? That's us going forward regardless now?
Yeah, I think so. And if it's a game where you've got to be on the front foot and you've just told me you can play centre mid, that's why it's been signed.
But he's played wide as well. He's played in the wide attacks. There's no reason he can't play in the Hwang.
You're not dropping any of them, right?
He's dropping Hwang and he's dropped to Hwang.
But you need a squad, though, is my point. I mean, he's not going to... That's not going to be the 11. We're not going to play that 11 for the next 30 games, are we? There's going to be injuries,
No.
there's going to be suspensions, there's going to be times where it just doesn't work. So you need to be able to replace quality for quality. So if you have to take Neto off and bring Bellegarde on, brilliant.
You're happy to do it,
It's a great
exactly.
option. So it's his own fault. He was daft. He kicked out.
Exactly.
It was an awful red card. You know, have your medicine.
Absolutely. Steve, thank you always for your contribution to the Wolves report. Great question, creating some debate amongst the team here. Shabaras, are we getting too carried away with Saturday's result considering the criticism in the last week? I'll answer that one. What I would say is your next loss isn't far away. And for Wolves, for quite a while, your next win is quite often far away. So let's enjoy now. I'm getting carried away. We've seen our team deserve to beat the European champions. They had a few injuries and a few out, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And I thought Wolves were fantastic. So are we going to overwax and get a bit carried away? I hope so, because moments like this don't come around very often. So let's enjoy it. But equally, we've shown what we're capable of in the stands. The team have shown what they're capable of on the pitch. So they've set their own standards now. They've put the bar up. They've raised it. That's the level now. Repeat that against Aston Villa, and it could be another good result. Great question, Shaba. Thank you for your contribution to the show. And now I don't know if either of you two listened to. Did any of you listen to the interview with Hobbs on 5 Live? Like, he did about 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, no,
not yet.
Okay.
Sometimes I have to go to work, Ryan. We don't do this for a living.
Oh, sorry, lads. Sorry about that. We'll move on. Well, Matt Seard asked a question in terms of Hobbs on 5 Live. Well, I'll ask it and I can answer it myself just quickly then anyway. Just listen to Matt Hobbs' 5 Live interview. I personally think he's one of the most important people at our football club at the moment. Do you think Fosun's ambition can match Hobbs? Great question. What I would say is I think Hobbs hasn't been in that job very long. What he has done so far with the incoming recruitment, I think he's done quite well, especially in terms of Wolves have had to release a lot of players and sell and claw some money back because of the business model. They've seemed to have balanced the books and brought in Bellegarde for me, who looks exciting. Can't really talk about many of the others yet because we haven't really had a huge opportunity, but I am excited about Bellegarde. But as for Matt Hobbs going forward, let's see. Again, let's enjoy his work. We don't know. It could have been an absolute masterstroke getting Gary O'Neill. The initial thought last week was there's absolutely no chance that. But now, again, Wolves have beaten Man City and our manager's done tactically the best manager in the world. So let's see. And if Wolves continue to go forward, Hobbs might get pinched. But again, I don't think he'll be gone anytime soon. But if he is, it can only be good for Wolves because it means Wolves will have been doing well. Chris, thanks for your question and contribution to the show. Tyler, you can just carry on waxing about this back five. Jerry asks, is the back five the way forward, Tyler?
I like to see it more as a back three.
Oh, yes.
Just the way I'm playing it.
Tyler and his sexy talk on a Tuesday.
Shall I put a husky voice on? Because my wing backs are my wingers and the forwards are my front three. So, and let's be honest, if we lose, I don't want to go negative, but if we lose Saturday, it's panic stations, and let's be honest. So what games are we going to go into where we are on the front foot and we are expected to be the better team? I don't see many. I really don't. So for me, it's the way forward. Even against your Villas, your West Hams, your Brentfords, teams that I think we can quite comfortably compete with. But I wouldn't say we're necessarily better than any of those teams. So for me, it's just the obvious way. And it's purely because of how it suits the individuals. We talked about it earlier. Totti, for me, can't play as a left-back and he can't play as a centre-back in the two. But he's perfect as a left centre-back. Same for Kilman. Ait-Nouri's a better attacking. It just works for them, in my opinion. With the players we've got, we're suited to that back three at the moment.
Yeah, the squad does look like, I know a few people have said this, that performance does suggest we are more suited to tucking in midfield, frustrating and breaking very quickly. And if you've got Semedo, you've got Ait-Nouri, Neto, Hwang, Cunha, you should be breaking quickly because there's 5 fast footballers there. So, yeah. Jerry, thank you very much for your contribution. Great answer. Chris, Nocky, where we go to now. Going on to Dave, before the City game, it felt like we've had a terrible start to the season. If we go to beat Villa, would you say we've actually had a good start to the season? Great question, Dave. Nocky.
I think if we beat Villa, we're halfway up the league, which is probably above anyone's expectations. So yeah, I'd say so. If we beat Villa, it's probably a good start to the season.
Dave, thank you for your contribution. That moves us nicely into this weekend's game. Aston Villa play in Europe on Thursday, and as a result, the knock-on is the game is put to Sunday afternoon. It isn't on TV, but it's a 2:00 kickoff at Molineux. I've not even had a beer on Sunday afternoon. It's a stinky time for a game to be when it's not on TV. This is a massive game, boys. They've just absolutely pumped Brighton 6-1. We've just beat the European champions. It's set up to be an absolute classic, 0-0. Tyler.
Brighton won the next G though, Ryan. You'll be pleased to know.
Well, that's what that matters, mate. You know how it goes.
They might have lost 6-1, but they won the XG, so that's all good.
What a shit house.
We're all sort of like the Birmingham side of Wolverhampton, aren't we? So for us three, it's always been a bit of needle, hasn't it, and a bit of a big game. But I don't know, they're very up and down, aren't they? You know, one week they look brilliant, the next week they don't look very good. So I'm hoping we get them on a bad day, if I'm honest. I think it could, I don't want to give them too much credit, but I think it could be a similar type game, really. I'd expect them to have a lot of the ball. They're brimming with confidence. They've got good forward players. And I'm more than happy for us to do something similar where we tuck in and hit him on the break because, you know, Cash, Digne, I'm sorry, I'd love us to be running at those pair. And if it's Neto and Hwang and Kuna as well. So I'd like to think we can compete and get a result, but it will be a difficult game because they are a good side with a top class manager at the moment.
I think Tyler's smashed it there, Nocky. But one thing that I'd noticed from watching Villa and watching a healthy amount of football, particularly in the build-up, I'll try and watch as much as I can for the next opponents to just try and feed my own brain to see how work out what they're going to do and what Wolves are going to do. But the one, as much as Villa are absolutely brutal going forward at the moment, particularly with the on-form Ollie Watkins, no idea how he's not in the England squad, by the way. They do look vulnerable to balls in behind. I think Brighton had a few chances. They are vulnerable to a through ball. And as Tyler says, if we tuck in and draw them on, and you're playing the ball in the channels behind Digne, behind Cash, Wolves will get some business there.
Yeah, I mean they'll come to Molineux expecting to beat us. They're very arrogant. We know that fan base is arrogant.
Here we go.
The team feel arrogant.
Every week, Knocker. This isn't me.
You've set him off.
They're arrogant. They're horrible. They'll expect to turn up and just wipe the floor with us. So I expect them to leave space in behind. I think we'll have opportunities to break. They do overcommit. They do leave you opportunities. And when Tyler's laughing about XG there, that's because of the amount of space they left behind for Brighton to come into. It's only because Brighton forgot to put their feet on that they couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. So I think they'll come with their usual swagger and think that they're going to just wipe the floor with us. But I think we'll have opportunities. But they are a very, very good team. I mean, they've accrued plenty of points and they've won 10 home games on the spin, and you don't do that unless you're a good side. So it's going to be a hell of a challenge for us. But I think Tyler articulated it perfectly. It's a difficult game, but there will be opportunities for us.
Absolutely, there will be opportunities. I don't think we need to go into it too deeply, but are we saying the same 11, same tactics, pretty much go again?
I'm not changing anything.
No,
yeah,
I know. Four changes, Ryan, from the team that just beat Man City.
Put Sarabia in.
I've got to be honest now, just to prove a point. I want Gary to make 4 changes, and then I'll put that clip on next week. But I know Gary's very much of a coach, from what people say, that he's a horses for courses kind of guy, and he doesn't care what anyone else thinks. He'll change the team to suit the opponents. But sometimes if when the performance is that good, I don't think you can change that, because it was a team littered with 9 out of 10 performances. So I'm struggling to see how we change it. Nocky.
You can't change it. I mean, if he changes it and we get beat, I'm going to go on another rant and get myself in trouble again. So
I'm hoping he does.
I don't think
4 changes.
It would make no sense, because Tyler touched on it.
Jokes aside, who you bring?
If Bellegarde was fit, you could go to a 4-2-3-1, but he's not fit, so I don't see anybody change anywhere. You don't need to change anything.
I just don't think that there's any sense beyond changing it. If we play the same way and we get beat, you're probably not going to look at the manager as much. But if he changes it around and we get beat, then you're going to instantly go for him, aren't you? Because it would be a mistake. So I just don't think he will change it. I don't see any point. Villa will attack. They will expect to win the game. They will come for us. So why would you do anything different than what we did against Man City, where we soaked it up, broke with pace, and hurt them? And there's no reason to assume that there'll be anything different in the game.
Absolutely. I'm in a total agreement. Let's go the same again. I mean, he might tweak the shape and tell people's different jobs because it's Villa play a slightly different shape to Man City. But I think the same personnel deserve to start again after such a wonderful team performance. Moving on to that part of the show where last week it went 6-0, 5-0 and 3-0. Everyone was wrong. No one had Wolves to score a goal, but they scored 2. And as I said it before, they beat the European champions. Prediction time for Molineux on Sunday, Tyler. Wolverhampton Wanderers v our friends Aston Villa.
Just before that, where do I put my overtime in? 'Cause I'm 5.5 minutes in here extra. Are you on overtime, Knocker, tonight as well?
What, did you get paid for this?
I mean, I did give us a cat and owls chance. I think if we perform to a similar level, we can beat them. But I'll sit on the fence and say 1-1. And I'll say the man himself, Hwang Hee-chan, or Hee-chan Hwang, as he likes to be called.
But any positive result, if Wolves draw and you're taking 4 from them 2 games, it's amazing. Knocky?
Yeah, he's pinched my score, actually. I fancy a 1-1 as well. And that's not being negative. I think Villa are a good side. And I think if we get 4 points out of Villa and Man City, I'll absolutely take that. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think Villa will take the lead. I think it'll be Watkins. And then I think it will be Matheus Cunha with the equaliser. Well,
every time I don't say Cunha, Wolves seem to get a result. So Matheus Cunha isn't going to score. And I'm going to go with a 0-0. How boring, how fence sitting. But equally, I would take that. I'd absolutely take that. This has been episode 74 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to our director of football, Chris Tyler, and thank you for our fence sitter, Mark Knock. Nunes, what's the score of the Wolves?